It's Monday, so welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Brian Brott, and my guest today is Alan Molyet, a 2010 Van Buren graduate who is a senior 340B coordinator at The Ohio State University's Wexner Medical Center. Alan shares how a typical day in his position looks, how he balances his day job with a career as a soccer official at high school and college levels, the importance of being a lifelong learner, and much more. Whether you're interested in a healthcare administration career or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Alan shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. And today we have 2010 Van Buren graduate Alan Molyet with us, and he's going to be talking about his career. Now, it has a little bit of a cryptic name. He is a 340B coordinator at The Ohio State University's Wexner Medical Center. So I'm interested to hear a little bit about that and all about the rest of his career. So, Alan, thank you very much for joining us today. And I'd love to hear a little bit about what does a senior 340B coordinator do on a daily basis?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Mr. Broad. Thanks for asking me to do this. I think this is really cool that you bring, Van Buren graduates on to talk about this to help students. This is really cool. So first off, I guess, so 340B, it's a federal drug pricing program. It's not well known. It's a weird niche. It's definitely not something that a 12-year-old would say, yeah, like this is what I want to do when I grow up. Just something that a lot of people kind of fall into. So there's different arms of the program. So when I worked at ProMedica before, I kind of worked on the hospital side of this program. Now I kind of moved over to the grantee side. So now I work for the Ryan White Clinic here at Ohio State, Wexner. So the rules are a little bit different, but essentially the goal of the program is the same, which is essentially drug prices vary greatly. I guess I'll go back and forth because I'm so used to, working on the hospital side for a little over 6 years, but essentially there's different price points that you can buy drugs at for outpatient drugs. You have 340B, which is usually 30 to 40% cheaper than the WAC price, and the WAC is wholesaler acquisition cost. And then GPO is a group purchasing organization where it's just a slightly cheaper way you can contract in to different groups like Vizient and similar ones to get cheaper contracted drug prices for your health system. So that's one way to start thinking about it, is that 340B gives large discounts in drug pricing. So the way that health systems and grantees enter the program, there are a lot of requirements. You have to register online. It only allows you to register a new location each quarter. So, April 1st through April 15th. HRSA is the government program that administers this, the 340B program. So I try not to get too far in the weeds of all this stuff, but essentially they allow us to save a lot of money on these drug costs, and essentially what we're supposed to do with that money is put it back into the community / into our patients. So if there's any underserved, there's uninsured or underinsured patients, we're supposed to kind of be using this money to put it back into different programs to help them. So some hospitals will we'll say, hey, we're using this money to keep our doors open. Like at Toledo Hospital, we have a hemophilia treatment center, which kind of loses money by itself, but we get all these 340B dollars, and they say, okay, we can now use this money to keep the doors open on certain clinics, certain things that are very specific disease, for specific disease states, like those blood things that the hemophilia treatment centers work with. So it is kind of a little bit convoluted, and I think big big pharma doesn't like the 340B program in general because, they have to sell their drugs to us more cheaply based on the law, right? So they might come here and say, oh, like the 340B program, they don't, there's no direct, patient benefit or whatever. And we kind of have to, on the health system side, kind of prove, okay, this money that we're saving from these drug prices, this is how we're using it to benefit these patients. So you'll see it coming out from both sides. So the other thing that, that we've been involved in, or I've been involved in since I've been in the 340B world, is you have to advocate for yourself. You have to, like, I've been to Washington, D.C. We've sat in senators' offices and House representatives' offices. We have these things called impact profiles, pretty much things saying like, this is what our health system does. This is why 340B is important to us. This is why you should support us in that. So like, that's been a pretty cool part of being in this world is, it's essentially healthcare in the US is such a patchwork, right? It's like there's different payers there's Medicare, there's Medicaid, the commercial payers. You have 340B, which no one understands, no one knows much about. So the more that I could learn about it, the more, it could help me in my career. And it was able to, help me launch to this job to where it's a little bit less convoluted and more like, okay, this 340B income that we get, we are supposed to spend it directly on our patients at the Royal White Clinic, which is with our distinction, we have to use it specifically for the patients living with HIV and AIDS. So like it's the grantee side is like I said, a little bit different, but we also have restrictions on what we can spend this 340B income on. And that's kind of like, they brought me into this job now to kind of expand on what they use this money for to help them and to kind of develop new programs and to make sure that we're spending this money that we have coming in. So a long-winded way of saying what I do.
Well, it sounds very important. Sounds like a lot of numbers, a lot of that. Now, you talked about having to basically lobby for it. Has it been threatened, or have you never really gotten that close to it disappearing?
It's being threatened right now. Without, diving too far into it, there's a side arm of it. It's called contract pharmacy. And Big Pharma is kind of coming and saying they're coming in with restrictions. They're saying, okay, like this list of drugs right here, like you can no longer use contract pharmacy for these drugs, like just because we don't want you to anymore. And we think that we can. We think that the statute isn't written well. We think that HRSA can't come in and do anything about it. So, there's ongoing court cases, and you can read up pretty much every week on this is where it stands for this. And I think we're up to like maybe 28 manufacturers kind of came in and said, this is how we're going to do it now. And we're kind of waiting for these lawsuits and appeals and stuff to kind of go through the federal courts and say, no, like pharma, you can't do this. Like you have to adhere to, the way that the program is intended, which the program got a lot bigger in 2010 with Obamacare, and it expanded the things a lot. So you can, if you ever looked into like how many grantees, how many hospital systems are registered with 340B, it's gotten much bigger. And I think that some of the demands or the asks from them are just more transparency from us to show kind of like, how much are we saving? What are we exactly putting the money to, and all of those things. So there's kind of like a push and pull to make it make sense and all that. So yes, I would say it's definitely something that needs to be advocated for. So.
Are you sitting at a desk most days doing things? Are you in meetings most days? What's the balance of your day look like?
So it is a hybrid position. So some days I'm at home, some days I'm here in my office, like I am right now. There are definitely meetings. Sometimes you just kind of have to, there is some just putting together Excel sheets of different drug costs, because they might want to know, okay, like if we got 340B under this new distinction, how much could we save? Which drugs could, be on this new list or under this, that could be bought at the 340B price. So essentially you could just do like a cost benefit analysis of this is how much money we would save if we switched, and it's not an easy switch or an easy registration. You have to So this program, I think that a lot of people think it's just a pharmacy program or just very, you know, one track mind on there, but really it's compliance, it's legal, it's finance. You have to kind of have all these different stakeholders from different parts of the health system kind of weigh in on a lot of different things that you want to do, especially if you're registering a new clinic or adding a new distinction. So so you do have to work with a lot of different people. There's definitely I'm in and out of meetings for sure, but um, it also with this job, I've only been in it for about 5.5 months, and it's a brand new position. So it's kind of like I kind of have to build it in a way and kind of see where we want it to go. So the way it might look for this first 12 months might be completely different than what it'll look the second 12 months that I'm here.
Right.
So
Well, that's a cool opportunity to get to build the job and
right.
using your previous experience and looking at those previous experiences. You were at the UT Medical Center when you were in college as a pharmacy residency administrative assistant, Paramount Healthcare Medicare Part D coordinator, ProMedica. That was your first 340B opportunity. How did all of those things contribute to where you are today? And obviously, the previous 340B experience helped, but what about some of those other things?
So I should probably start with just undergraduate time at the University of Toledo. I think when I was about 12 years old, I just said I had a cousin who was about 6 years older than me. He started at the University of Toledo and he wanted to be a pharmacist. So back when I was 12, I was like, yeah, like that sounds good. Like I'll just try to do that if be a pharmacist. I didn't take very long into undergrad, probably 2 semesters, 3 semesters in, and I was like, I don't think this is what I want to do. I thought more about it. I shadowed at a pharmacy. I like looked at the more closely at the course load and the course and like what kind of classes you would take in the PharmD program. And I just was like, this kind of sounds miserable to me. Like it wasn't exactly that. And I think a lot of people could relate it. Like the first major they choose isn't exactly what they wanted to do. So essentially I got to the portion where you have to sit for an interview just to get into the PharmD program. So at UT, it's 2+6, 2+4, essentially. So your first 2 years, you're doing all the pre-pharmacy things, and then during your sophomore year, you have to interview. Versus like at Ohio Northern or University of Findlay, like once you're in the beginning, like you're in. But when I chose Toledo, I kind of in a way it took a chance because you get 2+4, but it was also a lot cheaper to go to a public university. Anyway, so by the time I sat in that interview my sophomore year, I was just sitting there thinking like, please don't like let me in because I might honestly just tell you no because I was just so like, and again, I didn't get in. So I'm not trying to sit here and say like, oh, I got in, but I just chose not to. But I was like, I probably would have chosen not to. So no, I didn't end up getting in anyway, which I was like a relief to me because at that time, this is not what I wanted to do anymore. And luckily, UT, so if you don't get into PharmD and you want to stay in like the pharmacy world, there's some different degree tracks you could choose. They're called BSPS degrees, so Bachelor of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences. I chose pharmacy administration because I always felt like I thought about switching majors completely to like finance or whatever, but it would have taken me an extra year. And I was just kind of like, like let me kind of stay in this pharmacy world, but let me be on kind of like the admin path. Some of the other ones were pharmacology, toxicology. I could have chosen medicinal chemistry, pharmaceutics, or they had a new program within cosmetic science. And anybody who reads The Blade or follows or cares at all about the University of Toledo College of Pharmacy, just last month they announced that they're cutting degree programs. Enrollment when I was a freshman was 21,000 students. They're now down to 13,900 for the entire University of Toledo.
Oh, wow.
I actually go back and I guest lecture one of the classes that I took in the pharmacy admin, and we did that 2 weeks ago, and there was one student left in this
Oh,
pharmacy
wow.
administration class, and essentially the article that ran in the Blade last month is they are completely doing away with the degree that I have. So pharmacy administration is gone, medicinal chemistry and pharmacology toxicology are all after they're grandfathering the kids that are in there now, but essentially this is the degree that I have will not be an option for students going forward at the University of Toledo.
Right.
I'm not sure if there are similar degrees across Ohio. I know that we were pretty unique. I'd have to look and see if Ohio State has, you know, similar degrees to what I had, but essentially I just wanted to start there just to give you an idea of like how everything started for me. So with my BSPS degree, you mentioned that I worked at UTMC. They had a required internship, and so that's the one that I was able to get. And I will say that they kind of sent an email out and said, "Oh, there's this like potential part-time job," and I kind of talked to some of the faculty there, and I was like, "Can I make this into my internship?" And they're like, "Oh, maybe, you know." And I actually like I had to send multiple emails and talk to them multiple times because they were kind of like, "Oh, like we've been putting this on the back burner because we're not sure if we can actually, you know, make this job into a reality that we sent out to everyone."
Oh, geez.
So I still remember talking to one of the faculty members, and he's like, "You know what? You've been asking about this like probably 5 times. I'm just gonna make it happen for you, and we're just gonna stretch it out." And so like me just being annoying and like pushing them like got me into an internship where I didn't have to. For me back then, I always felt like my time was split between Findlay and Toledo, and I was like, I don't want to also split my time for a summer in like South Carolina. That was just my own
Right.
personal preference or whatever. So I was like, it was really nice to be able to stay in Toledo and to help with the pharmacy residency program at UTMC. So anyway, that got me kind of started. And then in reality, by the time I had finished my undergrad degree, like I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. I was just like, I'm gonna get my foot in somewhere, hopefully, and see where it goes. And I ended up getting a job in July, about nearly 10 years ago now, at Paramount Healthcare, which also, if you've been reading the news about Paramount, they have just like May 1st, they're about to be sold to Medical Mutual out of Cleveland. So ProMedica is making a lot of changes, and we can talk a little bit about that. But essentially, even that first job that I had, even if I had stayed the whole time, who knows if that job would still be there in about 12 months. So
Right.
so that was kind of the beginnings of it.
Right. I think that's really interesting, though, for again, I think people hear pharmacy, it's always, well, I'm just going to be a pharmacist. Well, no, there are so many different, I guess, shades of pharmacy that a person could go into. And yeah, that's interesting that they're shutting down that program. And I'm sure there are things like that other places, but that is interesting. So, yeah, your plans definitely changed between high school and where you are today. And, I think that is also interesting that you considered another career, but, again, seems like you're happy where you are now. Things have worked out, and that's a good thing. Now, something else that I think is an interesting aspect of your career is the fact that you are a soccer official, and you've been doing that for, yeah, many, many, many years. 3,500 plus games, state tournament experience here in Ohio, ref in the Horizon and the MAC for Division 1, and then done some Division 2, Division 3. How do you balance soccer officiating and what you do for your full-time job?
So yeah, I did start refereeing youth soccer when I was about 14 years old. So it's been a long time. I've had a lot of experience and a lot of growing pains and a lot of all of those things within it. As far as balancing, I think I got really lucky at ProMedica because I kind of made it apparent that I cared about this and that I wanted to do it. You get vacation like anywhere else. Some people, I would get the idea that some coworkers are like, "Oh, you can't like take vacation to work another job," and I'm like, I can kind of, in my opinion, you can take a vacation to do whatever you want. You don't have to tell them exactly what you're doing.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, yeah, like I would use vacation, I would use half days, and because a lot of college games, especially around Northwest Ohio, they kick off at 3 or 4 p.m. So in order to be able to do that, yeah, you do have to take vacation because they don't have lights. It's kind of partially why they kick off early. So yeah, it's a lot of yeah, I've missed meetings. I feel like there's definitely push and pull, but the other thing about a day job and a career is just you just have to understand that you have to figure out where you can, how much you can get. I want to say how much you can get away with, but really, there's a push and pull there too, because I mean, you hear it on LinkedIn, you hear about this grind culture and, oh, we should be working 50, 60 hours a week. And I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard and try to figure out what you need to do, but at the same time, the work-life balance matters, and that always mattered a lot to me. The other thing with I feel like with our generation and younger is people job hop a lot more, and there's incredible positives to that. You have a lot of different experiences in different um, sectors of the industry that you're in. You get pay raises theoretically every time you jump, if that's one of your prerequisites for making that change, and those are all good. I think for me, like I worked at ProMedica for 9 years, because Paramount was owned by ProMedica, so it's essentially the same company. The positives of that were I had more vacation. They were flexible with me. I stayed for a reason because they allowed me to referee soccer, and it was something that I cared about a lot, especially when I was younger. So I was able to do a lot of traveling in my personal time. Like I know this is about about our careers, but I'm just like willing to let you know that you don't have to. It doesn't have to be your life, I guess. So when I have soccer on the side, I always feel like when we were growing up, they always told you to be a well-rounded person, right? Like try to care about the humanities, like know what's going on in the world. Like I still remember the current events class with Mr. V and all of that in high school, and I really enjoyed that back then. So yeah, I think that I will admit that I refed too much soccer at certain times in my life. Like my parents would tell me, my girlfriend would tell me, my friends would tell me, like, oh, we haven't seen you in so long. But that's the other thing is there's a labor shortage of soccer referees, and it's a kind of a thankless job and all of that. So in a way, just being able to referee college and high school, and kind of like as you get better at it, it just made me want to stay and continue to do it. It allows you to exercise. It gives you a side. Not many hobbies pay decently, especially once you are able to ref at a collegiate level. Um, um, I have a job, or I have a spring game at Ohio State tomorrow night, and that'd be pretty cool. It'll be the first time that I get to ref at Ohio State. I did a couple spring. They're essentially scrimmages in the spring. I was at Michigan once and Michigan State once in the spring games in the past. So it's kind of cool just to see where you end up, and it's a fun thing on the side that doesn't have too many drawbacks besides just how much time kind of it takes. So
And angry fans.
yeah.
Now, as far as moving from high school, you probably then went to Division III, Division II, and then up to Division I. Are you still climbing that ladder, or do you feel like you're kind of as high as you want to go, or how does that look?
The latter. I think I've definitely plateaued, but I think the thing about soccer refereeing is, like I talked about how much time it is. And in order to kind of break through because the other thing is, like when I referee Division I, like I'm an assistant referee. I have the flag, I'm on the sideline. So if you want to be in the middle, you want to have the whistle for D1 games, even if it's, Toledo, BG, Horizon League, the mid-majors or whatever. You need to be seen by certain people in Chicago. Most of the time, you need to be traveling, going to certain tournaments, and doing things. You have to quote unquote play the game in the right way. And in order to do that, it's a lot of more weekends, a lot more time. And you have to be really good, which I'm not sure that, like, yes, like I referee D1, like that's great. But just like the talent level between me and some of the people I work with are like really impressive. And I'm totally cool with where I am now, just because I feel like now that I finally left Toledo after 13 years. I finally left ProMedica and got this job here at Ohio State. I feel like I'm kind of transitioning to my day job a little bit more, and maybe I'll ref a little bit less. Plus, when people start families, when people, when life, does what it does, it shifts your priorities. It shifts what you want to do, and so like I should also shout out to my older brother Randy. He's actually the one he's been reffing for 35 years. He's got me into it. He's still doing it a lot more than I am. And so like that was his passion. And so I've kind of shifted to where like now I think I want to focus a little bit more maybe on my career day job and things like that. But at the same time, I still like it, and I still want to continue to referee to some extent. But
that balance is important. To Yeah. Just like you said, 60, 70, 80 hours a week at work. You might be able to do that for a while, but eventually that's going to drag you down. If you can have that balance, definitely very important. So, yeah, that's really interesting. I respect referees for the abuse that they put up with, and you know, but again, we wouldn't be able to have our games without you. So, definitely an important aspect of athletics. As you think about, so going back to your day job, 340B and so forth, what would you say are some characteristics that people would need to have to be successful in this field of healthcare administration and so forth?
Organization for sure. When you have a lot of different meetings and you have a lot of takeaways and kind of things you have to do off of that meeting, like the more notes you can take, the more you can be organized and ready for the next meeting you're going into. It's definitely helpful, especially when you get into those meetings with senior leadership, like at ProMedica. Like I remember sitting at some big tables and presidents of hospitals in there, right? And just knowing where you're going, knowing that the decisions that you're trying to make or trying to push are backed by data and backed by your experience and things like that. So as far as other characteristics you might need, I don't know, you just pretty much need a work ethic and you need to be able to um, get your point across to them in the best way that you can, and also still being a positive person that they feel like they can trust, I guess. So
Probably a lot of attention to detail too, with all the numbers you're working with, and
true.
if
For sure.
things.
The knowledge of just in the program, and the other thing is the program changes a lot too. So like when I was at ProMedica, I went to conferences twice a year. There's a national 340B health conference in San Diego and Washington, D.C. So I've been going to those for 6, 7 years. And then now that I'm on this grantee side, there's like even more specific conferences. And so like I'll probably be headed to Phoenix in May to kind of learn a little bit more about that. And the other thing is when you go to conferences, half of it is just networking with other people that do this really specific job across the country that I'm doing. So like yeah, I can talk to other people at Ohio State, but not very many other people know how, know 340B well, or at least know it to the point of, in the Ryan White side. So it's like specific and then it's specific upon that. And then, so it'll be nice to be able to meet some colleagues across the country too.
Right. Speaking of networking, did that play a role in you getting the job at Ohio State, or was it more just you had the experience that they needed?
Um, I think I got pretty lucky. So I didn't know anybody that worked here. I didn't have an in that way. I think that the way that the job was just listed on LinkedIn, it wasn't very obviously a 340B job. And then once you read into it, like a couple paragraphs down, I realized kind of what it was. And I was like, oh, I think this, I could be pretty, um, useful for this, or, it could transfer knowledge for this or whatever. So honestly, yeah, I think that a lot of people probably didn't even find the job that were in the 340B world maybe. And so like
Right.
that kind of sometimes you just get lucky, right? But at the same time, yeah, like I have to interview well. I have to be able to show, how this transfers. And yeah, like I had over 6 years of experience in the 340B world on the hospital side, in Toledo. And um, so yeah, that definitely helped transfer, and it's been a really good 5 months. Like I couldn't really have asked for much better because I was moving to Columbus for personal reasons, and luckily this job just like because I searched for jobs probably for it was probably just over 5 month process last year. And like, after the first 3 or 4 months, you kind of get a little bit discouraged. You get to like these final interviews of some other places and you don't get chosen. So then you have to like start over again.
Right.
But you kind of just have to keep going. And I was really glad to land here. So
Good. As you think about what you've learned in your time in your career, and as you look back at yourself in high school, what do you know now that you wish you had known back then?
I'm not sure if you've heard this from other people before, but essentially, you know, quote unquote, it's nobody knows what they're doing. I guess you have to everybody you learn as you go, and people are way nicer about it than you might think. And if you can just be a congenial person who is putting in an effort, like that's like more than enough for a lot of people. So like, yes, you do have to learn how to do your job, but you don't have to know everything all at once. It can build on each other. Like I got to this job, and anytime you start a new job, like you're kind of in a way, you're kind of in the dark until you can figure out, what they specifically want, what they don't know, what they've tried before, all of those things. You just kind of have to take it one day at a time and kind of build upon itself. So yes, there are people who have been doing things for 20 years, know exactly what they're doing, but they might be introduced to something new one day and they don't know it at all. And maybe they don't even want to touch it. They don't want to learn. But that's the thing I think that a lot of people have to do is you have to continually learn, continually, be able to make those changes, because that's what happens in careers and in jobs. Like things change, and working somewhere for 40 years is almost, it's going to be unheard of pretty soon, I think, especially with all the acquisitions, mergers, all those things that is going to make you switch to something else, and you have to make yourself, worthwhile for someone else to bring you on. So yeah, it could be daunting. It can sound daunting at times, but it's not that bad. And like I said, the more they like you as a person, it helps way more maybe than you would think. So.
Right. Yeah. Obviously the skills, experience, and all that matters, but you have to be the right person too. And that really does matter. So Alan, I really appreciate everything you've shared. Again, one of those careers, I'm guessing 99.9% of people who watch this have no idea what a 340B coordinator was or is, and I'm one of those people. So thank you for shedding some light on that. Thank you for the work that you are doing to hopefully reduce some costs for people, and good luck as you continue your career journey.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you for making the Joust About Careers podcast part of your day. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story, and to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with me, and as always, come back next week to learn even more just about careers.